Welcome to another episode of Rebel Rootz. I love my next guest. He brought me in his whole intro. He's fellow Toastmaster. His name is Neil Taft. Neil believes that our duty in life is to live in a way that there is zero tread left on our tires when we move into the next dimension.
Yes.
I love that. He grew up on not so affluent streets of Cincinnati, Ohio. Oh my gosh, you're using big words, Neil. His auspicious beginning, including quitting high school 3 years in a row after his freshman year. In the era of the military draft, he joined the Air Force and they surprisingly made a jet aircraft mechanic out of him.
That should scare you.
That does scare me. Not for that reason, but just, After those 4 years, he married and went to work for now defunct National Airlines in Miami, Florida. Seeing the future of the airlines questionable, he became an entrepreneur and built a very successful business in Western North Carolina. He developed an obsession for auto racing. All right, super cool. He says it was an obsession because the next 31 years, he worked in various aspects of the sport, including TV production. His next ventures included unlimited license general contractor, disaster restoration contractor, dry cleaning store proprietor, real estate investing, logistics for the world's largest cheerleading company. What?
Yes.
Oh, we are going to dive into all these: lighting, solar sales, online e-commerce. How do you say that? Proprietary. Author, speaker, Kwanzaa grandparenting expert, author of 4 books, and the past 14 years he has been a professional piddler.
Yes.
I want to be a professional piddler.
I have been doing it now for 15 years in Wilmington.
Welcome.
I love it.
All right. So this was an amazing introduction, but let's dive in.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, okay. Before we dive into this logistics for the world's largest cheerleading company, take me back to who were you back in grade school?
I had my greatest curse in life. Dad died when I was 11, so I became an unsupervised 11-year-old and did that for the next 10 years before I joined the Air Force. We had a minimal amount of parenting, so it allowed me to get in a lot of trouble, but it also allowed me to learn to survive. And in the streets of Cincinnati in 1960 were pretty rough. That was a rough way to grow up. And I love the name of your show. I was a rebel. I've raised rebels. I have an entire family of rebels. So it gave me a strength, I think, because I went around and I adopted parents along the way. I adopted couples that were friends. I adopted relationships with families and everything else. So I had what I needed, but it caused me to reach out and do that. So I just was kind of being unsupervised became a strength. And all of those careers that you just read were all meaningful careers. I went to the top of most of them. I'm not a quitter, but Beverly Sills, many years ago, the great opera singer, retired from the opera singing to become the administrator of the Metropolitan Opera Theater. And she was asked in an interview one day, and she said, well, how can you put aside an opera career when you're at the top of it and you still have a lot of years left? And she wore a little charm bracelet. And on that said IADT. I already did that. Hence the first sentence. I think we're supposed to wear all the tread off our tires. We're supposed to try new things. I became a little bit fearless and reckless, but that was the days or the result of being an unsupervised teenager.
And then in the next sentence, you say that you quit high school 3 years in a row.
I went to a Catholic high school with priests.
Okay.
Didn't do well. I almost finished my freshman year. I think it was a D average, so you could say I finished. My sophomore year, I had some homeroom teacher that I didn't get along very well with, so I quit. Then the next
What did you
year,
do after you quit? Just go get a job, or did you
I
just
went and got a
roam
job,
the
a
okay,
factory in Cincinnati.
gotcha.
Made more money than all my buddies. Bought a convertible. I
Shoot.
mean, I was living pretty
You
well.
did
But
okay after you
the
quit.
the next year, I went out to the local public high school and I wanted to sign up, and they said, "Okay, you we need your transcripts." I said, "Well, I asked them that, but they said they had to mail them to you. I couldn't bring them." She said, "No, you got to go back and get them and bring them to us." So I went back to my Catholic high school. I asked for them, and they said, "Nope, we got to mail 'em." So I went back and walked in the office, and I said, "They got to mail them." She said, "No, you've got to get them." I said, "Young lady, I don't want to be part of your school anyway." That was my 15 minutes at Western Hills High School. Then the following year, I did go back and I did a whole semester because I had a wonderful art teacher and I really enjoyed it. But that was a very, very rough high school. We don't need to get into all that. But anyway, so that was my 3 years in a row of trying to become a sophomore in high school.
Did you ever graduate?
I got a GED while I was in the Air Force,
Okay.
went on to get an associate's degree in business. And so that was all kind of erased after that.
Yeah.
That's,
No, and I think that's awesome too. And that's one of the things I because when I grew up, my parents preached to me that you had to go to school, you had to go to college, you had to go to college. And that's not the case anymore.
no.
I'm not saying don't go to college and don't pursue that, but there's so many things now that doesn't take a college education that you could go out and experience or learn off of, you know, YouTube. And some of the best entrepreneurs never finished a lick of college.
And it works different ways for, I think people that are risk averse should stay in school. But riskers learn more by failing and picking themselves up, dusting themselves off. And my mom was the most significant person in my entire life. And she believed in me and she taught me to get back up again and go try. So I've done that. And I've had some bumps along the road. I've skinned my knee, fallen off some pedestals,
Well,
but
I just call that pivots,
that
right? It's
exactly. And I go back to the fact that I was an unsupervised teenager. I learned ways to work around most everything. I
you
learned
were a
loans.
problem solver versus like uh, naysayer. Or I guess I'm not looking for a word, but you learned how to solve your own problems.
Sure,
And
you
a
do.
lot of people cannot do that. They can bring the problems to you, but man, if you can bring the solutions to those problems, you are an asset to anyone that you're with.
It's part of it, I think, is the necessity. I mean, that'll teach you a lot of things. And I didn't have a fallback. We were very poor when we lived in Florida before Dad died. We went to Cincinnati, lived with my grandmother for 10 years, 8 years, something like that. Mom worked a minimum wage job at the time. But we got by, but we did not have those other resources. So it teaches you to develop your own resources, figure a way through it.
Which do you think that's a reason? Like, do you think that's what we're missing in our society this day? Is that whole? Uh, I mean, your experience. I mean, look at all this stuff. How y- I mean, that created something inside of you, right? And I just don't think, I think now as parents, we're trying to hold them up and don't let them make mistakes and don't let them get hurt and all these things. And I think that we are preventing them from having life experiences, which is hindering their growth.
To some degree, yes, but everybody is going to hit the wall. To whatever degree they hit the wall, we try to protect them from everything. I'm working on a talk for Toastmasters called Kiss Your Own Boo Boos.
Okay.
And I think it is that resilience, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, Rollins, when she wrote Harry Potter, had to stay in a coffee shop all day because she couldn't go out in the cold. She had her own daughter with her, and she just learned. She, at one point, didn't even have a pen to write with. And she asked the conductor on the train for a pen. She was resourceful enough to find out how to do it. And now we have Harry Potter, one of the best selling books in the world. So I think everybody's got resources. Sometimes it takes a tragedy or a
mishap.
difficulty
Mm-hmm.
to bring those up.
I agree.
And I think you served a lot of meals that you had to work pretty hard for very little amount of money for a long time,
Very.
and staying behind the wall in the restaurant to make it work. Well, now everybody looks at your success and says, Evonne, you are just really got it made.
Right. It must be nice.
And
It's my
I
trigger.
say you've really made it because you make
Love that.
it. So
Auto racing?
I had a best friend at church. He and I were in our men's group together, and he wanted to do something with his 16-year-old son, Ricky. And what that was, he would take him down a local racetrack. So one night, in my double knits and my nice shirt and my nice shoes, I went with him to the racetrack. Somehow or another, I found myself crawling under a race car and changing a fuel pump that night. So I was bit by the bug, and that's been 40 years ago.
All right.
So
did you do like NASCAR or?
I managed
did.
the Busch Grand National race team for a year and a half. That was my height. And then my TV experience was in NASCAR. I was a pit producer and an executive director of a 30-minute TV show in NASCAR.
All right. I want to get into the whole grandpa thing, grandparents, but I first want to hear about this world's largest cheerleading logistics job.
I had stepped back from racing. My bride had some illness, and it happened to be cancer, so she did not go that very well. So I stepped back from racing and decided I'd stay in Charlotte. So I went back to my old hammer and crowbar and started working construction some. So she got a job as a salesperson. She was out one day calling on people, and it happened to be the fire restoration business. And I said, well, while you're out, take some of my cards, and if you see a place, just drop a card off. Well, she came home one afternoon and she said, I dropped your card about 4 places, and I walked into this one place, and it was a zoo. I said, what? She said, well, it's a gymnasium. Kids running all over the place, bouncing on trampolines, going crazy and everything else. And this lady took your card and said, we're going to probably call you. The next day, I got a call from the owner of that. And they had a gymnasium with about 400 kids in it. And they also had cheerleading teams. I've never had a child in cheerleading. I didn't know how to spell it. I probably would have used a day in it. But I went down and met with him. He was a giant of a man, beautiful person. And he asked me, I think our first thing was I hung some doors in the bathrooms they had there, and I redid some lighting and that kind of thing for him at first. Well, about 6 months in, he came to me one day and he said, would you go to Atlanta with us? I said, well, what's in Atlanta? He said, it's called Cheer Sport Nationals. It's the largest cheerleading competition in the world, still is today. That's been 30 years ago. And he said, would you go help us down in Atlanta? So we went down to the Georgia World Congress Center, put on some stuff, put floors down, do logistics and everything. And we worked 20 hours a day for 4 days. And I came back pretty tired.
I bet.
But he paid me well. So he said, now, will you go on the road with us? And I said, well, I've got to have a income to do that. So at first we weren't agreeing on how much I needed, but I finally did. It wasn't a lot of money, but just I needed to be able to take care of my bride. That was 15 years before he sold the company and I left and moved here to Wilmington. So
that's super cool. Just by your wife dropping off one of your cards.
that was it.
You
And
just
at the
never know.
zoo, by the way.
At the zoo.
And it was a zoo. Trust me, I love those little kids. I had fun with them.
So before we get into the grandparents, I guess we need the story. How many kids did you have? I mean, like, tell us how you got to be a grandparent.
Okay. My first wife and I had 2 children, a year and 4 days apart
Okay.
in South Florida with no air conditioning.
Yeah, no.
That may be why she was my first wife. And that, anyway, but we had 2 wonderful children who are still in my life today. My greatest blessing by far is that I get to have breakfast with my daughter, and my son and I talk every day. We talk twice today. But those two went on, and my son had 1 daughter, and my daughter had 1 son. So I had those 2. Then my grandson, who's now 37 years old, married a young lady who had 4 children.
Okay.
Those are my great grandchildren. Then they went on to have children of their own, which are great great grandchildren. So I'm spreading out. My son's daughter is only 20 years old. She's at North Carolina School for the Arts. So
That's super cool. So you took the whole grandparent title serious.
as serious as I could possibly
And you've
could.
published 4 books
That's correct.
about grandparenting.
Yeah, those are my 4 books. I started off my son and I went to him one day and I said, Chuck, I want to write a blog. And I drove up to Asheville. We went to lunch, and I said, I want to write a blog. And he said, Dad, and he put his hand on my arm and said, Dad, you know I love you, but he said, you'll write a blog, and 3 or 4, maybe 5 people in the family will read it for a while, and then they too will wane. They'll probably not keep writing it. I said, that's okay. I want to do it. I'm committed.
Yeah.
He said, well, pick something you're passionate about. I said, that's easy. I'm a grandpa. I'm the best grandpa I know. That's real easy. Well, at the time, we were doing some e-commerce things on the internet. So he said, well, let's find out what the keywords are in grandparenting. And at that time, that would be almost 20 years ago, the keyword was grandparents' rights, the title of one of those books. So I wrote to Grandparents' Rights. Well, back in the initial parts of Internet 2.0, keywords were much more important than they are now.
Correct. Yeah.
And so my little blog that nobody was going to read after I wrote articles using Grandparents' Rights, we began to climb up in the Google, and my little blog was about 1,000 people a month reading my blogs.
Oh.
That blog now has 450 articles on it. And it's
Do you still write it?
Yeah, I still write it. It's called caringgrandparents.com.
Caringgrandparents.com.
Yep.
So that became your grandparent rights was your first book.
Yes.
And then the
the
second
one I softened up a little bit. It's called No Greater Loss, about a grandparenting losing their children. And if you look at that cover's a reflection. That's why it's upside down.
Is this you on there?
No, that's
okay.
But that's a reflection on a pond of losing a connection with a grandchild.
Oh.
So no greater loss. And then after that, I used to get emails from grandmothers that could no longer stand their grief because they had taken care of a grandchild for a couple of years. Then the son and their grandson and his wife get separated and divorced, and then they don't get to see the kids anymore. So I didn't have solutions for that. I wanted to write more to what can we do to preempt that? And consequently, I wrote, if you don't mind a quick story.
Tell me a quick story.
Name drop.
Okay.
There's a gentleman named Jack Canfield.
I love Jack Canfield.
He wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul series. They've sold over 500 million Chicken Soup for the Soul books.
It's sad that people like the younger generation have no idea about Chicken Soup for Souls. So you know.
But anyway. I knew him back in the days when I was a youth minister at my church, and I was doing self-esteem training. So he was doing I saw him online, and they were going to do a writers' conference. So I joined it based on my trust of him because I had known him 20 years prior. Well, I signed up for it. You didn't have to have a book. You didn't have to have anything. It was for all writers. Well, I signed up and I had a title and an idea. Well, they made me write 20 pages. My title was Good to Great Grandparenting.
Uh-huh.
I wrote 20 pages. I've got about an hour interview with Jack saying where we can go with this. And consequently, the quote came out. He said, I believe Neil knows more about grandparenting than anybody I know. I cherish that.
That's a pretty good statement from him.
Then at the end of the 57 minutes on my little interview with him, he said, now you got to write the book. That's Good to Great Grandparenting.
Out of the 4 books, how long did it take you to write the 4 books? How many years did you spend?
I started 8 years ago.
8 years ago.
Yep.
And you got 4 books. So a book every 2 years.
Yes. Yeah, the last 2 came rather quickly, but I had learned, and I learned that I like to write. So,
all right. So I knew about all these books. So I wrote some questions that I wanted to ask so that the audience out there could, I don't know, get your perspective at that. But I recently, I don't know if I've told you or not, but I became I'm going to be a grandma in March. Okay, I did tell you. All right, so maybe this is more for me than anybody else. But what's the biggest mistake you see grandparents make in trying to connect with their grandkids?
Forgetting to take really good care of their mother.
Really?
The daughter-in-law or daughter is the queen on the throne. Oh, she controls whether or not you will see your grandchildren.
That is
through
true.
thick and thin, through marriage and divorce, through anything. And the one thing is that people tend to side with their son in a divorce, and then the daughter-in-law goes off and decides they're out of the picture, or they remarry. And if you did not have a strong relationship with the mother of your grandchildren, you are out of luck. Every court in the country will back that.
Do you have any tips of what you need to do? Just, I guess, respect their rules. Respect.
One of our Toastmasters gave me a book one time. It's written by David Brooks, and it's called How to Know People. And people just want to be seen, heard, and valued.
Okay.
Now, when he brings that young lady home and she's got tattoos or she's got bleached hair, whatever you think as an old grandpa you don't like, that's not the time to express that, because you start alienating them early, and then it's hard way to get back. Respect and value that person. I have an ex-daughter-in-law. We get along gloriously because she's the mother of my 20-year-old granddaughter, and I won't do anything to get in the way. I actually told my son when they were going through their separation and divorce, I said, I'm not going to take sides. If you take sides, you alienate.
What about, I'm sure your grandkids, great grandkids, and great grand, I don't know if they have iPads yet, but do you find it harder to grandparent the great grandkids versus the grandkids?
Yes, it is, because they're when your kids go off, they have a different life, but it's still connected. When your grandkids go off, it's even further disconnected.
Right.
And very often they live in other cities. Well, with great grandchildren, mine are very small now. So, and their parents are separated. So now I have to go through my grandson
to get there.
But I'm trying. I work hard at that. The number one thing, Jack asked me in my little interview with him, he said, what's the biggest myth that you find in grandparenting?
I was just getting ready to ask you.
And the biggest myth is that it's like falling off a log, that it'll just happen naturally. It is not like falling off a log. I have a saying, life is complicated. Family life is a multiple of complicated. Extended family life is exponentially complicated. You did not choose those people to be in your life, but they're in your life. And the mother of those children is the most important one of all those.
That's pretty cool. I was going to ask you what your best advice was to kind of end the show, but man, you've gave a lot of wisdom drops. What do you think? I mean, you even started the thing or the show off saying how you were a rebel. And do you think, can you relate to your rebel days in the beginning to how it's made you become a man today?
Yes, I had a grandma. Graham was her name. Graham could make a cherry cobbler like nobody's business. She could just really make us feel valued, really make us feel special. My other grandma on my dad's side didn't like us. We'd go over her house and we'd get out in the orchard and she'd scream at us for picking oranges out of her orchard. And it didn't go well. So I had one good, and my grandpa sat on the front porch, drank beer, and smoked cigarettes all the time. That's all he did. But that Graham taught me a great lesson because even in my rebel days, she loved us right where we were. And I guess if I had a one piece of advice to connecting with your grandchildren is meet them where they are, not where you want them to be.
I love that. Neil, for those who are wanting to find your books, where can they find those books at?
I'm on Amazon under Neil Taft or caringgrandparents.com.
I loved our conversation today. I'm so glad you came and onto the show. It's
Thank
been
you. I love
super
being
education. Go check out VMV Farms. You can check us out on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the social media platforms. And make sure that you come and check out Clean Eats too. And Toastmasters. You meet great
Please.
people at Toastmasters. Come see us at Clean Eats and join Toastmasters.